Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, both in person and online, for this important advocacy event, an evening of advocacy, storytelling, and solidarity for Sudan. Welcome. We are honored to host a range of voices, from academic researchers to grassroots organizers, each of whom carries a vital piece of the truth about what's happening and what's possible in Sudan. Welcome, and let's begin. We're going to start with Mr. Nathaniel Raymond, who's joining us via Zoom. He's a renowned human rights investigator and lecturer at Yale University. His work is on digital humanitarianism and atrocity prevention, is groundbreaking. So please join me in welcoming Nathaniel Raymond.
Since about April of 2023, our team at the Yale School of Public Health's Humanitarian Research Lab has been watching Sudan from space using high-resolution satellite imagery collection, initially to support the United States government's primary response to the civil war in Sudan. So in the past 2 years, we have been monitoring, in particular, attacks in West Darfur, in the city of El Geneina, and in North Darfur, in Al Fashir, in Zamzam, internally displaced persons camp, which we'll talk about in a second. Soon after the civil war started in 2023, the Rapid Support Forces, which had been and still are fighting the Sudan Armed Forces, engaged in a massacre in the city of Jenaina, called basically the capital of the Masalit. So that city in Western Darfur was the first site of renewed genocidal violence since the first Darfur genocide. And we watched from space as Masalit men and boys were rounded up and killed by the Rapid Support Forces, and the body piles were so large that we could see them from space. We think a minimum of 25,000 people were killed in that initial period from April to June in the city of El Geneina. And then the violence spread from there, and Rapid Support Forces, which is basically a paramilitary unit formerly known as Janjaweed, or Devils on Horseback, began to attack other Masalit, Fur, and Zagawa communities throughout Western Darfur. By the summer of 2023, we privately warned the United Nations Security Council and the U.S. National Security Council that we believe the Rapid Support Forces were attempting to complete the Darfur genocide that had begun in the early 21st century, and were going to surround the remaining internally displaced persons camps, which were in North Darfur, primarily around the city of Al Fashir. And so Al Fashir is a city that is strategically significant, culturally significant, and is operationally significant. Why it's culturally significant is it's basically the de facto capital of Darfur. If the Rapid Support Forces capture this city, they will have effectively captured every regional capital in Darfur and will have the west of the country under control. In short, to capture Al Fashir means that Sudan as we know it won't exist anymore. But additionally, what it would mean is that the last population that fled the first genocide fled to Al Fashir and what's called the Zamzam, Abu Shuk, and Al Salam internally displaced persons camps. That whole area has been under siege for over a year. And so we've been watching as the population there has been encircled and starved and shelled. The last force left to prevent the Rapid Support Forces from capturing this enclave is the Sudan Armed Forces 6th Division. At this point, they are running out of food, running out of bullets. And despite a UN Security Council resolution from last summer called UNSC 2736, there has been no significant international effort to stop the siege of al-Fashir. In April, Zamzam camp was overrun. We believe there was a minimum of 530,000 people there. Probably it was closer to 750,000. It was easily a third the population of Gaza in size. The whole area we're talking about is larger than the population of Gaza. And so basically when Zamzam, which is 12 kilometers to the south of al-Fashir, was attacked in April, it fell within 36 hours of rapid support forces attacking. The people there had been starving so long in what's called a state of IPC 5, Integrated Phase Classification 5. When children are at that stage of starvation, their limbs begin to basically waste, and we measure how much they're starving by measuring their mid-upper arm circumference, what's called a MUAC measurement. And so the kids in that camp that were attacked basically had not been properly fed since November of 2024. Prior to the November 2024 shipment of food to the camp, there had not been regular supply runs by the United Nations since April of 2024. So basically, when the camp was surrounded, and as we watched it burn from space, we could see people running from the camp on the roads going to a place called Tawila to seek refuge. And you would see little black spots off on the side of the road in the satellite imagery. And what that was were women and children who were too weak to run, pulling over to the side of the road to die. And at Tawila, after the attack on April 11th on Zamzam, we only could tell from reports from those who made it to Tawila, we could only estimate how many had died on the road. We'll never know the actual number because when they hit the road, they had no food and had no water. And they were, most of them had been starving for about 5 to 6 months. And so now, as Zamzam has been fully burnt to the ground, 9 of our humanitarian colleagues with Refugees International were executed by RSF on camera and shot in the back of the head. Now al-Fashir is next, and many of the people who fled Zamzam that couldn't make it to Tawila, particularly from the Zagawa tribe, made it to al-Fashir. And so now every day, about every 6 to 12 hours, we collect different types of remote sensing data from al-Fashir to try to determine how close the RSF are to the last enclave and how long, to try to estimate how long it'll stand. At this point, it's no longer a question of if al-Fashir will fall, it's a question of when. And when it does, the last battle of the Darfur genocide that began in the early 21st century will be complete. It lasted over a year, but at the end, we, the international community, did almost nothing to stop it. This was the most accurately predicted mass killing and attack on internally displaced persons probably ever. We knew since July 2023 this was going to happen. For over 2 years we've been warning, we've been preparing. We briefed the UN Security Council publicly and privately 6 times. We briefed all congressional committees that are relevant, the White House, the National Security Council. There's nothing else we could have done except care more. So what I'm trying to communicate tonight is that we are at a moment where we're reminded what Frederick Douglass said in talking about the abolition of slavery, that power concedes nothing without demand. In the case of civilian protection, in Sudan's civil war, in particular, the genocidal killing in Darfur, and that genocide determination, when I use the word genocide, I'm using the U.S. Atrocity determination officially by the U.S. government that it is genocide. So again, I'm reminded that power concedes nothing without demand. In the case of Sudan, there's been no demand from the American public. We haven't cared at all. And if we think back in time to the early 21st century and to the first Darfur genocide, which this is simply the completion of, there were celebrities being arrested, there were Save Darfur bracelets, there were student groups, there was people in the streets. Now there's nothing. There's a few people who care in a library in California, listening to some guy in New Haven at 9 p.m. at night on a Saturday. But there has not been any sort of political demand. What I want to leave you with is that we have to keep trying. We have to believe that we can create that demand. It requires us to protect those who are still alive and to honor the legacy of those who have been killed in Sudan, to engage in a radical optimism that we can continue to influence our fellow Americans and our fellow human beings to create that demand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond, for your insights and for shedding the light on the atrocities that are happening in Sudan. We're going.
The help that is needed, aside from helping the refugees, is it to arm the Sudanese army in order to fight, to push back the rapid response group? And why are they, I didn't read into it, why are they so keen on eliminate all the people from Darfur? It's a different race?
That's a great question. So the real reason why the Rapid Support Forces have been able to be so militarily effective is that they've been supported by the United Arab Emirates. The United States government sees the United Arab Emirates as a critical ally. And the U.S., the United Kingdom, and others have not directly criticized the United Arab Emirates arming of the Rapid Support Forces. Without those armaments, including fixed-wing drones, Chinese AH-4 long-range artillery, multiple launch rocket systems, etc., the RSF would not have been able to stay in the fight so long. So what's needed is not new weapons. What's needed is to stop the flow of weapons between the United Arab Emirates and the Rapid Support Forces. That's what's needed. Why is this happening? The Rapid Support Forces come from an ethnic group known as the Rezaget, and they are part of a larger tribal family called Bagara, which are basically semi-nomadic pastoralist herders of cows. Many of the people who are being attacked are from Nilotic tribal groups, meaning that they are black African tribal groups, such as the Zagawa, the Fur, and the Masalit. Some of them are part of a family of tribes called the Abala, which are camel herders. And so basically, this is a fight between the Rezaget, which are Arab, and I'm oversimplifying large amounts of anthropology here, but the Rezaget groups are basically, you would say, are Arab versus the non-Arab groups that are being targeted. And this is a fight that is complex, but at its core is a fight over resources, which includes gold, grazelands, water, copper, and other minerals. And so basically the Sudan Armed Forces, that's now in their last stand in Al-Fashir, ironically was the force, along with the Janjaweed that would become the Rapid Support Forces, that put the people in Al-Fashir and Zamzam, when it still existed, into those camps. And so now the tables have turned, and the militia groups that were created by the Sudan Armed Forces are now trying to destroy the Sudan Armed Forces, and the Sudan Armed Forces that have put those Black African tribal groups into the IDP camps are now the last hope they have.
So you conclude your speech by emphasizing that this conflict, although it has been going on so long, but it is not important according to the international community. The national community did not pay any attention to this conflict. Although we listen to the news every day about Gaza, then about Ukraine and Russia, in the prime time, all the time we hear about Gaza and Israel, but we never hear about Sudan. So I don't know why. Do you think, from your experience in working in this field, what do you think the reason behind that? Is it not important? Are the people just expendable there? Not important according to the international community? What do you think the reason behind that? Thank you.
I think there's 4 reasons, and none of them justify the silence and the lack of attention on Sudan. One is that there has been absolutely, until recently, no ability for the international media to cover the war. It's been too dangerous. And so organizations like ours that use satellite technology to see what's going on we've unfortunately been one of the only independent sources of validation about what's happening on the ground. So that's one reason. The second reason is straight up racism. So I also work on Ukraine. Ukraine is well covered because there's a popular demand. There's also a sense that Ukraine is relevant or perceived as relevant to most Americans in a way that Sudan is not treated. My view is that basically we have deprioritized Sudan out of a sense of stereotyping African conflicts as unsolvable and treating the war there as inevitable and unstoppable. And I find that to be utterly disgusting and disgraceful, and to be an entirely different double standard that I can't help but see through a type of racial disparity, because I think that's part of what's going on. The third reason is that I think the main driving blockage is that in order to stop this war, the foreign sources of funding and weapons for the war have to be confronted. And that includes on one side Iran, China, another side Russia, and the UAE. And so part of the reason why the war has not gotten the coverage it needs is because it means confronting many nations that the United States and others have not wanted to confront. The fourth and final reason is that I think there is been a failure of communication by the humanitarian and the human rights community as to what the big issues are here. And there's actually several wars going on at once in this civil war, and there's several different sub-conflicts. And I think we failed to adequately communicate to the American people the urgency and some of the specific sub-issues here, such as the Darfur genocide, such as what's happening in Kordofan, what happened in Khartoum. We've communicated badly. And in the end, there's no excuse for the failure of the humanitarian community and the advocacy community to prioritize this for the American.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond, for your presentation. My question is, have you been asked or have you got to present to the current administration and the new Congress about the situation?
Yes. I presented to the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Senate Foreign Relations Committee. In fact, it has been the Republicans on the Senate that have been the most activated on this issue for over 2 years now. Frankly, Senator Rich of Idaho has been the best ally of the Sudanese people in Congress, along with Senator Van Hollen, Democrat from Maryland, who has attempted to stop the flow of weapons from the United States to the UAE, and from California, Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs. There was another senator who played a critical role in oversight in that until recently, and that was Senator Marco Rubio, who was great when he was a senator, not so hot when he became Secretary of State on this issue. The point is, yes, we've briefed the State Department, and through them the National Security Council and House Foreign Affairs and Senate Foreign Relations. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
That was wonderful. We're now going to move on to the next speaker. We welcome Esther Sprague, a tireless advocate and founder of Sudan Unlimited, who has long worked to center Sudanese civilian forces in U.S. foreign policy. Esther, welcome.
Hello everyone, I'm Esther Sprague. I'm going to use my notes. Unlike Nathan, who's an excellent speaker, he's a hard act to follow. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's good to see many of you again. My name is Esther Sprague. I'm the founder and director of Sudan Unlimited. And during the day, I'm the senior director of administration and finance at the University of San Francisco School of Law. So I was introduced to Sudan in 2003 by Mamir Fourajat. So anyway, I was introduced by Mamir, who was from southern Sudan, was attacked by the Sudan Armed Forces as a child, forced to walk across to Ethiopia and then back across to Kenya, where he was a refugee. He eventually came to the United States, and together we became activists. I want to thank INAM and the Sudan Platform for Agriculture and Food Security for the opportunity to share with you what I've been reading and thinking about. And so I've tried to put this together in sort of a PowerPoint, and I'm calling it What About Sudan? Millions at Risk, Millions Marginalized. And so I thought it might be helpful, so we go to the next slide, to define what the word marginalize means. Marginalize is a verb that means to relegate to an unimportant or powerless position within a society or group. So based on what I have observed for the last 22 years and even just this past week, Sudan is marginalized in the world. On Tuesday, the UN Refugee Agency shared 5 takeaways from their 2024 Global Trends Report. By the end of April 2025, more than 122 million people were forcibly displaced. 1 in 3 forcibly displaced people come from just 4 countries: Ukraine, Afghanistan, Syria, and Sudan. With Sudan having the most people forcibly displaced, I'm sorry, just 1 second, I'm losing my place. Having the most forcibly displaced at 14.3 million. The report also states the number of internally displaced grew by 9% compared to the previous year, reaching 73.5 million by the end of 2024. Of the 73.5 million displaced, 11.6 million are from Sudan. It is the largest internally displaced population ever reported. The world recognizes the crisis in Sudan is serious. Yesterday at a UN Security Council meeting, the U.S. stated, we can go to the next slide, this conflict continues to be the world's largest humanitarian crisis. The UK representative to the UN said, Sudan is among the world's worst humanitarian crisis. France declared the humanitarian emergency must be addressed. But the A3+, which is Algeria, Sierra Leone, Somalia, and Guyana, noted humanitarian funding requirements have almost doubled since the start of the war. Amidst funding cuts and existential needs, the 2025 Sudan Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan is only 14% funded, almost 7 months into the year. The need for funding and resources remains critical. The A3+ calls on the international community to scale up funding. The crisis in Sudan is in its third year, and the world is well aware of it, but it is largely ignored. I only had to Google Sudan and apathy, and I found a simple, straightforward article written by Dr. Adil that was published in Modern Diplomacy on December 27, 2024. Dr. Adil writes, the crisis in Sudan is one of the most pressing humanitarian catastrophes of our time, yet it remains alarmingly absent from global headlines and international discourse. The world's neglect of Sudan is a damning indictment of global racism, compassion fatigue, and political apathy. Dr. Adil explains what we are seeing with regard to the world's response to Sudan. Double standards in crisis response, media bias and lack of representation, selective compassion, donor fatigue and aid shortfalls, erosion of international norms, such as the responsibility to protect. Fragmented regional responses. So Sudan sits in a region that's ill-equipped to lead a coordinated response because of challenges related to economic stability to internal conflicts. Dr. Adil outlines the consequences of neglecting Sudan. There's the humanitarian catastrophe in Sudan. The region is destabilized, and while Sudan and the region suffer, the lack of attention and accountability for the crimes committed against the Sudanese people creates, by the humanitarian crisis, sets a dangerous precedent of eroding global justice. So go to the next slide. Dr. Adil concludes his article by outlining solutions. These are big solutions. Address structural racism, strengthen multilateral action, amplify media coverage, and what we can do is mobilize civil society. Jeff Bezos had to move his wedding because the people of Venice mobilized and demanded it. This is what mobilizing civil society means. Let's go to the next slide. The time to act is now, and to make that easier, I am consolidating actions that you can take on the Sudan Unlimited website. For example, there is a petition that you can sign to encourage the UK government to help the children of Sudan. If you scroll down, and you can take action by Act for Sudan to contact Congress and ask them to prioritize humanitarian assistance for Sudan. And next up, through the Sudan Platform for Agriculture and Food Security, you can donate and help farmers in Sudan. So there's a whole list of actions that you can take. So just, there's a lot of different types of actions, but let me just conclude, and you don't have to go any further. Dr. Adil, I think, concludes rather succinctly. He says the crisis in Sudan is not just an African tragedy. It is a failure of humanity and the international system. Overcoming these challenges requires a collective commitment to justice, equity, and solidarity. The Sudanese people deserve more than indifference. They deserve a global community that values their lives and supports their struggles for peace and dignity. Thank you.
I believe there's an organization called the Organization of African States, and I believe they have authority to do group action. So why wouldn't they maybe send a few brigades in there to help defend those defenseless groups if they're a reliable regional African group?
You know, I haven't heard of this group, but I know that typically there's some reluctance to go in and help militarily. It seems like probably the best course of action is to pressure the parties that are fueling the war. For example, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. Our allies are fueling this war. If the arms dried up, it's very likely that the war would end. So there's other ways of doing it without direct military intervention. Well, thank you all very much, and please check out the website, Sudan Unlimited. I'm trying to keep it up to date with analysis and events and actions that you can take. Thank you very much.
Now joining us virtually is Dr. Mazen Khalid, board member of SAPA, the Sudanese American Physicians Association, Public Affairs. Dr. Mazen will share key advocacy updates and diaspora reflections, and also reflect on the dire humanitarian situation, especially as it relates to the health crisis in Sudan. Welcome, Dr. Khalid.
Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me and see my slides clearly?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Mazen Khalid. I'm an interventional cardiologist by training. I'm also a member of the board of directors of the Sudanese American Physicians Associations, which is at core, it's a professional and humanitarian organization, and we've been providing aid in Sudan, and I'm gonna walk you through the work we've been doing and the extent of the humanitarian situation. So, to put things in prospect, this is the things as they stand. More than 12 million has been internally displaced. We have 30 million people who are in need of assistance by 2025. 3.7 million cases of children under 5 years and pregnant women and breastfeeding women in need of treatment for acute malnutrition. 24 million people are facing food insecurities, and less than 25% of health facilities are functioning as it stands. 17 million children are out of school, and there is a lot of cases of sexual violence and horrific atrocities that are being committed. This is the financial update as of this week. As we see that only 14% of the required aid has been secured, which is 600 million out of a total requirement of $3.6 billion. And if we look down in the breakdown, you're going to see that within that $600 million, only 4.8% have been allocated for organizations to deliver aid in a way that they deem fit, and most of the funding has been coming in through plans. And obviously this plays to localization of aid, because as we know, things take time. There's a lot of pledges that happens, but for that money to materialize, it takes time, and that's time that can result in devastating outcomes, especially when we're dealing with malnutrition or we're dealing with acute medical illnesses. This is our summary for what we have been able to do in Sudan in 2024. We've been able to help approximately about 500,000 people. In our approach to delivering care in Sudan, we follow more of a holistic approach. So we try to address resiliency, we try to address determinants of health. So we're able to support healthcare workers, about 1,300 of them, through incentive programs. We've been able to screen 22,000 kids for malnutrition. We've delivered more than 1 million meals, and we've admitted about 6,000 kids for malnutrition. We helped deliver about 1,600 newborns through skilled birthing attendants. We created 11 partnerships, and we were able to train about 900 professionals. We played a big role in vaccination, and we held 36 mobile clinics. When it comes to psychosocial support, we were able to provide consultation for about 5,000 people. And most importantly, when it comes to building resilience, we were able to rehabilitate 17 facilities, and that includes tertiary centers such as the major maternity hospital in the capital, building the only standing pediatric ICU and working in 2 neonatal ICUs, and we were able to support 34 healthcare facilities to continue providing services. Now it's very important to look at this slide and remember that this is 2024 in its entirety. Now we go to the next slide and we compare it to 2025. And you see that we have already served 75% of the population we were able to help last year, and this is just by me. So year over year, we're very proud to say that we were able to do more, but that's also to highlight that the need is significantly more now that the war has been going on for more than 2 years. In this year, we've been able to screen 16,000 children under the age of 5 for malnutrition. We've been able to provide more than 200,000 laboratory tests, deliver more than 2,000 babies. We provided antenatal care for pregnant ladies, more than 10,000 of them, and we're able to provide 133,000 beneficiaries for medical supplies. We continue to do our psychosocial support, we continue to train our cadre, and our vaccination has more than doubled since last year. So we were able to vaccinate 15,000 kids, and this is again just by me in the first 5 months of this year. Now, what's our goal? Our goal is by 2026, we want to ensure that the targeted individuals, which especially women, adolescents, and children, can survive, thrive, and access high-quality care. Our objectives is to provide emergency health services, nutrition, and WASH, which is water, sanitation, and hygiene services. We need to expand our coverage. We need to mobilize innovating finances, including diaspora contribution to enhance resource availability, because as we said, the funding that's available for Sudan in general is only 14% of what's needed. And obviously we need to strengthen the healthcare systems for long-term resiliency in Sudan and neighboring countries. Our strategy is multifactorial. We look into cross-sectional and life cycle evidence generation and evidence-based advocacy. We look into community empowerment and accountability that affects population. We're keen about establishing partnerships, and I'm very happy to say that we've been partnering with our guests. We partnered with the Yale Humanitarian Lab and many others, including WHO, UNICEF, and we are one of the biggest local organizations providing healthcare services in Sudan as it stands. We work a lot with crisis responsiveness, and we have agile development of teams in emergencies. We have grassroots investment through Nexus approach, where we invest in local communities to build capacity and support sustainable developments. We have flexible financing. We secure flexible funding mechanisms to ensure that adaptation to evolving needs. We're looking into innovation and gender responsiveness. Now, talking about the humanitarian response, if you pay your attention to the map on the right hand of the screen, when you see the orange, those are states that SAPA is currently providing services at, and we're very proud that we're able to be present in 10 states in Sudan, and we aspire to be able to cover Sudan in its entirety. We also registered in West Sudan, Chad, and Uganda, and we provide aid to those who are internally displaced and displaced to neighboring countries. In 2024, SAPA played a crucial role in emergency preparedness and rapid response across Sudan. We addressed crises caused by conflict, displacement, and natural disasters. Our mode has been usually through mobile clinics, medical supply distribution, healthcare training. We also ensure that there is timely life-saving interventions while strengthening local healthcare systems. And it's very important to mention this because things in war change very quickly. We're fortunate enough that our organization is big enough to be able to handle those emergencies as they occur, because usually for funding to be allocated and materialized takes time, and that's valuable time that the population cannot wait. One of our major outlets or modes of helping, especially in emergencies, is mobile clinics. We've deployed 36 of those. 36 mobile clinics were deployed in conflict areas and disaster-prone regions. We've operated in many states, such as Khartoum, Northern State, and Darfur, White Nile, Jazeera, Gaddafi, and Kasa. We provided life-saving healthcare through those clinics to 44,000 patients, including internally displaced and host communities. And the key services we were able to provide are general health checkups and disease treatment, maternal and child health care, malnutrition screening and nutritional counseling, emergency trauma care, psychosocial support, and vaccination and disease outbreak response. The impact has been strengthened local healthcare systems. We prevented disease outbreaks in crisis zones, and we established mobile healthcare as a sustainable model for emergency response. Now, when we talk about this, it's very important to realize that SAPA also works very diligently when it comes to training, because we believe that to create a sustainable healthcare solution, you need to have buy-in from the community, you need to build resiliency. And we have worked in training in numerous areas, as you can see in front of you, which included emergency triage and treatment, community-based management of acute malnutrition, infection prevention and control, psychosocial support and first aid, newborn and child health training, and community mobilization and disease surveillance. I think one of the perfect examples for this has been our response to cholera, as you guys have seen in the news. Although the media coverage has been below what's expected for such a big outbreak, but this slide depicts the response we have, and that's between June 1st and 22nd, so basically 3 weeks where we deployed rapid response teams that were able to do healthcare promotions for about 58,000 people. We covered 25,000 homes in 8 localities in Khartoum state. We were able to provide oral rehydration solutions for about 9,000 people, chlorination and strips distribution for about 21,000, and we covered houses with pesticides in about 42,000 rooms. Cholera treatment unit had 251 beneficiaries, and oral rehydration points has been 163. We had, through our mobile clinics, detected 176 cases, and the beneficiaries were more than 4,000. And all of this is data-driven, where we have daily reports that's funneled through our tracking system, where we monitor the progress and have the agility to deploy and redistribute resources as need be. And we've seen a significant decline since, and that tells us that our interventions on the ground has been very effective. As far as health, in 2024, we prioritized providing primary healthcare services to vulnerable populations. We worked through operational support to primary healthcare centers in multiple states. We also, as I said, previously worked in rehabilitating secondary and tertiary healthcare centers, and this is one of our proudest accomplishments, where we helped establish the first pediatric ICU in the country since the inception of the war, and we provided the training and the manpower to man that intensive care unit. We also helped renovate, restructure, and revitalize about 17 facilities in total. Here you can see on your left-hand side the before and after. We work by improving facilities and expanding operational capacity. We ensure that those hospitals could better serve the vulnerable population and manage the increasing demand brought by the conflict. And we're enabling the delivery of life-saving care to women, children, and other at-risk groups. As far as nutritional aspects, those are the numbers that we've been able to help. As you see, we've helped thousands of beneficiaries with their kids under the age of 5, and that includes receiving vitamin A supplementations. And food and livelihood, the if you watch the news, you know that the Zamzam camp had one of the worst crises when it comes to starvation and food insecurities. And we were able to provide assistance through Zamzam camp. We have provided more than 1 million meals through last year, and we had strategic partnership with local organizations and networks. We were able to deliver vital food supplies and hot meals to those most in need to ensure immediate relief and support for long-term resiliency. Zamzam camp, which my colleague Nathaniel has spoke about in the beginning, it was one of the worst modern era crises, where 500,000 people who are internally displaced were located in one area, and SAPA has created Hope Oasis, which was a transformative project. We had kids' activities, educational materials, feeding, healthcare. SAPA was one of the few, and it was the biggest organization providing help in Zamzam camp until its full destruction. Unfortunately, during the shelling on Al-Fashir that Nathaniel have spoke about, we lost the director of Hope Oasis, and we lost the director of the Central Kitchen for SAPA. As far as advocacy, we've partnered with the Humanitarian Research Lab in the report that they have issued. We have our General Assembly where we highlighted the atrocities that are committed, and we held a workshop in Kigali about reimagining health systems in Sudan. It involved a lot of stakeholders, nationally, regionally, and internationally. And lastly, we have strong media relations and thought leadership. We have been able to publish op-eds. We highlighted SAPA humanitarian efforts and exposing challenges such as targeting medical professionals and struggles in maternal health care. We've been featured in Forbes, Democracy Now!, US Department of State, and Washington Post. And obviously, it's a lot of work that has been done, but more needs to be done, and this is just a drop in the ocean of the huge crisis that's happening in Sudan. So, out of respect of time, we kept it short, and I would like to thank you all for listening.
Thank you for doing the work. It's like a drop in the ocean, but you're doing a lot. I have a few questions. One is that the Carter Center is has been working in Africa to eliminate diseases. So when you are dealing with cholera, is there any cooperation? Have you sought any help from them? That's one thing. Secondly, the Doctors Without Borders has been working, in war zones. Are they in action in Sudan? And third question is, I guess there's about 22 states in Sudan, and you are expanding from 9 to 10. How do you choose which state to go into? Is it dependent on stability? Looks like you are in one of the states which is in the west. So you are covering some of the refugee camps.
So first, when it comes to disease management, SAPA is one of the biggest local partners for UNICEF, USAID, and many other organizations. And yes, we've definitely been coordinating with them. As things stand, we work within healthcare clusters where we, supply data about our work on the ground, and we receive funding. So yes, we definitely work in collaboration with our partners. What's unique about us is, most if not all of our board members have worked in Sudan in a physician capacity or have went to med school in Sudan, so we still have our connections there, which allows us to mobilize local partners and gain local help from communities, and we're able to deliver care in a very rapid pace, which is obviously a thing that's not available for other international organizations. So that's as far as the first question. Now, as far as Doctors Without Borders, I'm not sure, to be honest. I wouldn't be able to give you an exact answer. As for the last question, Sudan has 18 states. We were in 9, now we're in 8 states. We're in 10 states as it stands. And obviously we aspire to be in more, but when it comes to West Sudan, the area that Nathaniel was speaking about in the beginning, SAPA is the biggest organization there, and I think even the local government is not able to reach areas that we are able to reach. After the disaster happened in Zamzam camp, when Nathaniel spoke about the new area in Tawila that people have been mobilizing towards, we already had an established clinic over there that we've expanded greatly after the loss of Zamzam camp, which was a big disaster, and our facilities were targeted specifically within the camp. As it stands, more than 500,000 people have been displaced to Tawila. We've expanded our services greatly to meet that demand, but obviously the need is still growing.
Thank you for speaking to us tonight. I wouldn't characterize the work you're doing as a drop in the bucket at all, given the circumstances, given the obstacles, the trying conditions that you're working under. I think the work that you're able to do is remarkable and significant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mazin. She reminded me to just specifically, I'm going to do that. You're doing a great job in Sudan. My question, you mentioned what you're doing in all cities around Sudan. I'm asking about Khartoum, the capital. I'm from Khartoum. We advocate every day. It is very bad situation in Khartoum. You know that. Specific around the West Nile, Giraffe West, Riyadh, Taif, Munshia. This area is backed up with population. As I speak today, there is no any medication. They have short of medication. People die because there is no medication. And I hope you're going to reach there. And I need from you to talk about that. Where are you going in Sudan, especially in Khartoum? I need to know. I'm from Khartoum. There is no help there. They just talk about other state, which is international organization reach there. That's Khartoum. What about that? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. Actually, I'm glad you brought up because SAPA is one of the organizations that never basically stopped working in Khartoum. We've been supporting the Buluk Hospital. In the beginning of the war, we've been supporting the maternity services in Khartoum. We supported the pediatric health in Khartoum. Actually, SAPA is the one who renovated the Saudi hospital in Omdurman. It was renovated through SAPA collaboration with the Department of Health. We do have many mobile clinics that were working even during the intense shelling of Khartoum and Omdurman specifically. We're obviously, Khartoum is one of the states that we have a lot of plans for. We're already working on the ground, and it's part of the building resiliency with the rehabilitation of facilities and so forth. So we're already present there, and we're hoping that that's going to expand and we're going to help revitalize all the health services.
I'm not talking about Omdurman, about Khartoum specific. There is no medication, there is no medical staff in Khartoum. Yes. There is no any medical service in Khartoum, not Omdurman. I'm talking about the West Nile, like Al Giraffe, Al Riyadh, and Al Taif. Those areas backed up is a population now.
Mm-hmm. So again, in war situation, it's always difficult to, pinpoint every city by itself. Yes, you're right, Khartoum is not as robust as Omdurman, but given the geographic proximity, there are services. We hope and we aspire to be able to help revitalize and energize Khartoum. It's definitely in the works and in the plans, but it's going to take some time, and also the funding is going to be important, and that's why we're attending all those conferences, and we hope that we're able to engage the diaspora and the international community. And SAPA is always looking to expand and provide services to every location in Sudan as much as we can.
It's always difficult to summarize someone's experiences and pain in a small or a short caption, and I think that's the beauty of photography. My name is Ala Khair. I'm a Sudanese photographer, originally from Darfur. Sudan has always been my photography playground, and I would say most of my photo projects and narratives are related directly to Sudan. It felt like a normal day, and then you start hearing machine gun fires somewhere in the center of the city, and just like everyone else, I thought that this will take just a few hours and things will go back to normal. Unfortunately, it took days, weeks, months, and now we are talking, and it's a year of conflict in Sudan. The decision came to leave that area in downtown Khartoum after there was no electricity for a long time, no running water, and no shops open nearby. So we started to run out of basic stuff, basic needs. Snipers started to appear in the area, so it became dangerous even to stay. I had the chance to be a war photographer. From my window, I could see fighter jets flying nearby. I could see at night. You'll see the bullets roaring in the sky. You can see the lights, just like shooting stars. But there was actually a lot going on in mind. Sudan is one of the places that is not camera friendly. I cannot risk being hurt. There's a lot to think about when you're a father. My interest in photography is more humanistic. It's more about the people. I prefer to shoot and to film and to talk to people in a better moment than the action of war itself. I always find that women go through much more pain than men, and subconsciously most of the images I'm attached to are actually stories of women. I met twins from Darfur, two young beautiful girls, Suhaila and Suha. They are 12 years old, and they traveled almost 2,400 kilometers from Darfur all the way to Port Sudan with their mother and their younger brother. The trip was difficult for them, although Suha and Suhaila are just 12 years old, but their ability to just be strong and hide all that pain so that their mother does not feel more worried is just amazing. And it made me respect them a lot, because their way of thinking and the way they talk about their journey is just unbelievable for someone who is just 12 years old or 13 years old. There are so many stories that stuck to my mind, but one I cannot forget is actually Hannah Wilson. Hannah fled the war in South Sudan in 2012 to find a safer space to live in Khartoum, where she lived mostly in abandoned homes. She was squatting from a home to another. And again, that she had to go through a second form of displacement from Khartoum to go back to the first camp that she went through at the first place is just sad. And what's actually more difficult to hear was Hannah lost both of her children in a span of less than a week, I think, as far as I remember. And she was actually in an extreme form of trauma, but she did not know that she actually in trauma. But you can see it on her face, you can hear that in her voice. It's always challenging to take images of people in need, because we always end asking very personal questions, almost invading personal spaces. But at the same time, I think the power of what we do is it allows their story to be heard, and that somehow help will find their way to them. It's very difficult to imagine how it feels to be in a war zone or to experience war around you, and I think to endure that for a year it's really crazy. And I'm not talking about a small population of people who are trapped somewhere. I'm talking about more than 8 million Sudanese had to leave their homes. The majority are still inside Sudan. Children are outside schools, no access to medical services, no access to basic human needs. And to endure that for a year, if there is no serious movement by the world, the conflict in Sudan could actually become even worse. I hope my photography helps in getting people to talk about not the conflict, but the people who are affected by the conflict.
السلام بهمنا نغني لأهلنا السودان بلمنا والله جميل ده مننا. شوفوا الجميل ده مننا، أيوة الجميل ده مننا، كمان ساكن حيانا. سلمت لك كلمته، سلمت لك كلمته عشان يكون في جنبنا. شوفوا الجميل ده مننا، عروس البحر جنبنا، في كسل أهلنا، في القربة والقضارف الناس دي أهلنا. نخيلنا في شمالنا، نهر النيل في دمنا، أيوة الزل مننا. النيل الأزرق جنبنا، النيل الأبيض حقنا، الزل مننا. برتقان يعزنا، في دار فرم لمنا. السلام بهمنا، السودان بلمنا، الزل مننا.
am the second one. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we do not just perform, we speak through dance, through rhythm, through the power of culture. Well, we come from every corner of Sudan, each with a unique story, a distinct tradition, and a proud heritage. But when we move together, we become one voice, one spirit, one Sudan. Our strength is not in being the same, it is in standing side by side. Different, yet united.
We are the children of a nation that has faced pain, but never broken. A nation of warriors, artists, farmers, and dreams. When we say one heart, we mean a heart that beats for justice, for dignity, and for a future where no child is left behind. No matter where they are from, what language they speak. This unity is not a dream, it is our need.
So tonight, we dance not just for tradition, but for transformation. We dance to show the world that Sudan's youth are not divided. We are one force rising together. We carry many names, many rhythms, many colors, but we have one destiny. One nation, one heart, one unshakable future.
for putting this together, so let's just give them another round of applause. That was just played when they did it. It's played by musician and singer who has unfortunately passed away outbreak in Mexico because of this war. So the last piece in the segment was to honor his memory and also to honor and remember the fact that there are so many people that continue to struggle, having a similar struggle with possibly similar things. Moving onward, we will now transition to introducing Ms. Hanan Ahmed. We're very excited to have her coming all the way from DC. She's going to be representing the Sudan emergency rooms. Hanan Ahmed is an activist and she is known for her work in establishing one of the first emergency rooms in Sudan. She founded the Old Sudan Emergency Room and also serves as an external officer and representative for the Localization Coordination Council of the Sudan Emergency Room Response Effort in the United States. Her work focuses on providing humanitarian aid, including food, medication, and safe evacuation to those affected by ongoing conflict. She has served as General Secretary for the African Union Youth Assembly. She is also a member of Engaging Women in Post-Conflict Economic and Political Decision-Making by UNDP and the North African Youth Group for Peace and Security by the African Union. She also belongs to Women Advanced Security in Sudan and presented research on women and youth political participation in Sudan at Oxford University in 2019. Let's welcome Ms. Hanan Ahmed.
Everyone. Thanks so much for the cultural platform, for giving us this opportunity to show the work and make advocacy on the worst humanitarian crisis on the ground. So we have honorable members. The war reached 13 of the 18 states in Sudan and counted tens of thousands of civilians killed, with over 180,000 estimated on the lower end, over 15 million displaced, over 25 million aid, 7 million in threat of famine, over 19 million children in schooling, two over three of the emergency response rooms are not funded. Critical situation, spread a pocket of famine, is a continued lack of adequate safe humanitarian access, spread war with increases of displacement, and siege and al-Fashir in West Kordofan right now, West Khartoum, and other spots, looting, air, bombing, shelling, arresting, systematic rape, hate speech, child recruitment, and ethnic cleaning, collapse of health education system with a vital wash and electricity issues, lack of safe traditional humanitarian access, internet outage cause high cost, which is vital for online banking access and our work as well. So we have an online platform and we have on the ground. But the majority of us are on the ground, and the coordination unit are based outside of Sudan. So we are coordinated through WhatsApp groups. And sometimes lack of internet prohibited us to continue our work. Who we are? We are first responders, growing number of volunteers, including professional technicians, community members, leaders, and activists. Grassroots effort in our neighborhood, among our communities. Agile, we can immediately respond and stay creative by changing our tools according to the needs. Recognition, we have been recognized as humanitarian actors by UN OCHA, USA before it's dismantled, and many international organizations. Neutrality, we are strictly humanitarian, non-political, and do not favor any side. We also adhere on other 3 core principles: humanitarian, aid, humanity, impartiality, and independence. We aim to provide mutual aid based on localized solidarity economy through partnership with the local and international organizations. We have 4 principles: accountability, participation, transparency, and equality. And here are the spaces and activities we engage in hospitals, evacuation centers, health clinics, women break rooms, women co-ops, communal soup kitchens, community initiatives, children center, alternative school programs, and volunteer support. We have structured body based on separation power, so the local parliament, executive working group, and governance constitution through our charter, and we have made programming reporting financial accounts. We have offices, health, food, security services, protection, human resources, capacity building, data collection, and media. This is a we are facing each day: financial lack of financial resources or shortage of financial resources. Social, we are fostering trust and participation of our community, thus need for transparency and communication. Security, our members are subjected day by day, and when we spoke out about that, they are evaluated by both sides. This is a map of the military control, shows the military control out in Sudan, in east and northern state, fully controlled by South, Khartoum, South, and it's completely South right now. That 4 are SLA, RSF, GM, and South, Kurdistan, South, SPLA, and RSF, Al Jazeera, South, Sinnar, South, Blue Nile and White Nile, South, and RSF. This is the current and urgent support needs. Severe humanitarian crisis. We have 1,696 kitchen out. We have only 400 are working, so 71.93% have drive their operation, affected food access for over 2.8 million people, complete shutdown in several states, West Kurdistan, North Kurdistan, South Kurdistan, White Nile, and northern states have no functioning kitchen, leaving in turn population without food support. We have high-risk areas severely affected in Khartoum North, Darfur, and Sinnar. Kitchen closure have impacted over 2.1 million people, intensifying food insecurity, urgent need for intervention, immediate restoration and support are required to sustain kitchen operation, especially in the most vulnerable areas. Forcing crisis without action, prolonged shutdown will lead to increased malnutrition, displacement, and severe hunger, further deepening the humanitarian urgency. Emergency Response Room volunteers have founded something called Localization Coordination Council. This growing mutual aid, partnership, and strategic planning group include state emergency response rooms, local NGOs in partnership with the state emergency response room, international NGOs as observers. So this is a list of the NGOs that we are in coordination with and the states. And because we are dealing with different partners, so it's too hard to coordinate with each one and inquiries. So we are innovate something called F-System, which F-System, it's a system to show the planning process, reporting and operation inside the emergency response room. It started with the F1, plan and budget, based by the emergency response room, by base emergency response room, F2 project approval, F3 contract, F4 financial report, F5 the program narrative report, and we have appendix bookkeeping and receipts, and we have LCC fund distribution form. And this is the tracker. This is the money spent since the war started. The stop, the checking, waiting, partially, the done project in the different states. And the presentation is available, you can have it later. This is the 4 phases that since we start right now until April, until May 2026, from May to April, we are aiming to spend more than $60 million on the humanitarian needs. Each phase has different strategies. This is when we get the need, how we adjust it with the system, and we do the data analysis. We are doing the community group, and we have new community groups. Why we should be supported? We have extensive coverage, operation in 16 states out of 18 states, and 96 out of 118 localities. We have one of the largest humanitarian presence in Sudan, fast and adaptive response. Our rapid support design enables us to quickly adjust to emerging needs, ensuring aid reach those emerging needs. Efficient coordination and a unified coordination system prevents duplication of efforts and enhance the impact of humanitarian assistance. Fair and just localized fund distribution. We have priorities for each fund and resources. Ensuring aid is directed to the most vulnerable communities. Maximize the impact our port operational landscape allows us to reach more people, reduce inefficiencies, and deliver life-saving support effectively. Here's for us to provide 5% of Sudan's humanitarian aid directly to mutual aid groups, increase ERR recognition as humanitarian aid workers through advocacy and demands for protection to our members, recognize the importance of mutual aid beyond when access on the ground is difficult for NGOs, recognize the needs for us to stay agile as a grassroots, increase the support and capacity building for the emergency response from volunteer, encourage community groups support as opposed to individual aid, speed up and keep funding flexible to meet the urgent, changing and predictable situation on the ground and respond to the famine. So this is the numbers. I know it's sometimes a little bit boring, but I'm going to give you a live example of in October 2024, we coordinated a Jazeera mass evacuation when people get attacked by the ERRs. And it was the worst thing I have ever seen. I never sleep for 3 days. Keep away to coordinate safe houses, secure funds, and to save people. We helped evacuate more than 10,000 families in these states by the localized funds. And the most amazing part of that, we secured safe houses for 150 raped women for 4 months, and unfortunately the fund cuts by the new administration affected those women right now that are unable to sustain that safe houses anymore. We are nominated for Nobel Peace Prize for 2024 and 2025 this year as well. But actually, the real award is not. Yeah, it's not when we get the Richard C. Holbrooke Award in Washington D.C. back in May this year, but when people on the ground say, "Hey, this is the people who sacrificed for us. This is the people who saved us. This is the people who bring the life for us." One of the women one of the beneficiaries, when I interviewed her, asked her, what do you feel after you get vaccinated safely? She told me like it's a Eid night when I see the water for the first time after 4 days walking on my feet. So this is our real mission on the ground. Yeah, we are wake up each day. We wake up to 500 urgent messages on the WhatsApp each morning. The weight of every message is life. And the pressure of knowing that every second counts. The scale of needs is overwhelming, and yet we keep on. Because we know that we know that this is the horror of these last 2 years cannot defeat the will and cause of Sudanese people. Salam, salam, wa adala. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanein, so much for the wonderful and the extraordinary work that you're doing, and for literally sustaining the lifeline of Sudanese people who are literally in peril. For the interest of time, we are going to move forward with our next guest. However, Hanein is available to take your questions after the event, so please make sure you connect with Hanein and you ask her questions and reflect on her presentation and what you can take away from the presentation, and ultimately how you can help. Thank you so much, Hanein. Another round of applause. Next, joining us from Cairo, our next speaker, Hanan Abbas. She's a food security expert, researcher. Welcome, Hanan. Thank you so much for managing such a time difference. We really appreciate it, and we're very lucky that we got the chance to have you today. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I'm very happy to be with you. Thank you for giving us the chance. I would just like to highlight that professionally I am a sustainabilist, which very much into prosperity and well-being of everybody sustainably. Today I will just give you a very sort of brief insight into the current food crisis and its multidimensional impact on vulnerable communities in the Sudan. The crisis in the Sudan is both urgent and structural. Food insecurity today is not just a consequence of war. It is a multiplier of vulnerability and a barrier to peace. Addressing it must go beyond calories to address land, dignity, inclusion, and opportunity. The current food crisis is unprecedented in scale and complexity. It is driven by armed conflict and civil unrest, climate shock, global market disruptions, currency depreciation and inflation, or actually hyperinflation, and collapse of food system. Before the war in 2023, Sudan was already facing a fragile food security situation. The war only deepened a pre-existing emergency, transforming it into a national-scale humanitarian crisis. 25% of the population were already in food crisis before the war. So what did the war bring in extra to the suffering of the people that they were already in food crisis? The area of the fragile food security expanded drastically. Entire food system collapsed. Market, supply chain, and agriculture integrated system, they were all in the conflict zone. And as the result, as that result in 2024 to 2025, 60% of the population was affected. I will not go to a lot of statistics which is being explained and given by all the good speakers before me. The only fact that I will add here is that more than half of the farming households have missed at least one agriculture season because of this conflict, displacement, and lack of inputs. What are the categories of vulnerable communities that we are talking about here? We are talking about 4 basic communities, grouping of vulnerable communities, which is the smallholder farming households, the urban poor and informal workers, women and female-headed households, children and youth. How were these affected? The smallholding farming household were already producers, now they are buyers. They lose their crops, they have no inputs, there is no marketplace, and many are even selling their productive assets to live, just to survive. As for the urban poor and informal workers, the rapid food inflation in cities is forcing them for a reduced meals, shifting to less nutritious, cheap food, pull children out of school to help into an income generation activities. Children and youth have suffered a lot. Malnutrition, school dropouts, children labor, and recruitments into armed groups. What are the areas, how did this all impact our societies? And here we have classified it under health, education, migration, social cohesion, and economy. Health-wise, as we have all known, rise in malnutrition, maternal mortality. Education were interrupted, hunger, displacement, economic pressure, dropouts, crisis, migration. People have moved and have been displaced from their homes. Social coalition, local conflict increase, rise of communal tension, localized conflicts, and backsliding of progress in women's empowerment and resilience. What were the mechanisms that help these people to cope, if we call it help them to cope? The mechanism they have used to cope under this disaster was disastrous in its own self. They have been skipping meals, undernutrition, low productivity, women with class, selling assets, long-term assets they were sold only to survive, pulling children from school, migration, entering into debt cycles, which is trap poverty, and it might be a last hunger trap. Early marriage or daughter withdrawing girls from schools. What were the solutions? All the solutions that were given on the ground were very short term. And it is not only short term, it is emergency response. So it is scale up food assistance, protected vulnerable groups like school meals, targeted cash transfers, nutrition supports for women and children, seek safe humanitarian access in conflict zone, restore local food system with inputs and irrigation, which is in very small scale and in-house cultivation schemes, support rural women and youth with land, training and finance whenever is possible, and it is usually from the family side, integrate nutritious sensitive agriculture into all recovery planning, shift from food aid to food sovereignty, and this has been done at a very, very limited local levels. Sudan food crisis is not simply a food availability problem. It is a failure of protection, access, justice, and resilience. A people-centered, locally led, and gender-sensitive approach is crucial to avoid a generational hunger trap. And this is our fear now, that we will be entering into a generational hunger trap. The current food crisis is not merely a humanitarian emergency, it is a deep structural failure of global and local food systems. For vulnerable communities, it is a matter of survival, dignity, and the right to food. Solution must go beyond aid to build equitable, climate resilient, and locally driven food security system. What do we need from national, international actors, even regional, national, and international actors? We need to depoliticize aid access and protect humanitarian corridors. We need to invest in local system and community capacities. We need to align the relief with resilience. Every food delivery should help build self-reliance. I hope I didn't take much of your time, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ustaz Hanan. We really appreciate your wonderful insights. I really look forward to hosting you soon to delve more deeper into the food crisis in Sudan, because it's a very complicated issue and it's very complex and has obviously so many dimensions and intersectionalities. Moving forward, I would like to introduce Hanan Karim, the founder.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming today for Sudan. The presentation is recorded, so we can just watch the presentation for the sake of the time. Thank you again for coming to support Sudanese farmers and Sudanese people everywhere in Sudan. We really appreciate your patience and your time being with us. Thank you very much.
Sudan has immense agricultural promise, fertile land, varied climates, and a long history of farming give us a strong foundation. We are major producers of sorghum, groundnut, sesame, and gum arabic, a key export crop. In fact, Sudan is the world's largest exporter of certain oily seeds and a leading producer of gum arabic, but ongoing challenges are holding us back from realizing this potential. Since the conflict began in April 2023, Sudan has seen a dramatic increase in internal displacement, and we now have the largest number of internally displaced people in the world, over 10.7 million individuals. That's about 2.1 million families have been forced to leave their homes, with Khartoum being the main source. These families have lost access to land, food, housing, and basic services like health, water, and sanitation. And the war has had a devastating effect on farming. Infrastructure and crops have been destroyed, markets disrupted, and farmers displaced from their land and livestock. All of this means that many families can't meet their basic food needs. Rising food prices make the situation even worse, pushing more people into hunger. By mid-2025, conflict has left 13 states largely unproductive. Sorghum, Sudan's main staple crop, has seen about 70% of its growing areas abandoned, resulting in a production drop of over 70%. Let's talk about what this means for food security. The conflict has disrupted agriculture, displaced millions, and destroyed livelihoods. The result is widespread hunger and malnutrition. To maintain food sufficiency, Sudan needs about 4.5 million tons of sorghum, 3.5 million tons of wheat, and 1 million tons of millet each year. Right now, we're far from meeting those needs. The situation is especially dire in Greater Darfur and Greater Kordofan. Health conditions are rapidly deteriorating, with children and mothers facing alarming rates of malnutrition.
Local production has collapsed because people can't access their farms or get agricultural supplies. This has led to major food shortages and supply chain disruptions since late 2024. This map shows the current state of food insecurity in Sudan. The number of people facing crisis, emergency, or catastrophe levels of hunger is the highest ever recorded since 2018. The ongoing conflict, economic collapse, currency depreciation, and high food prices are all driving this crisis. This is a humanitarian emergency that demands urgent action. We need a comprehensive approach that addresses the root causes and builds resilience for sustainable food security. Millions of children are trapped in cycles of hunger and malnutrition, which has serious health effects and limits their future potential. Immediate food aid is essential for these vulnerable populations. Right now, community kitchens and shelters are a lifeline. In Greater Khartoum alone, there are at least 200 kitchens, each serving about 300 families. Across the country, over 500 shelters are supported by community kitchens. These efforts provide not just meals, but also social and emotional support during this deepening famine. We need your help to keep these kitchens running. Our platform supports community kitchens that feed hundreds of thousands in Sudan cities and displacement camps. Our platform, the Sudan Platform for Agriculture and Food Security, is a voluntary, non-profit organization established in May 2023. We're here to stand with smallholder farmers and address the root causes of the food crisis. Our goal is to mitigate the impact of war on the food supply and support those most affected. Our vision is to transform Sudanese agriculture into a sustainable, productive sector. We want to introduce the latest technologies and best practices with a focus on training and development for farmers and partners. Achieving food security and supporting export crops are top priorities. Our mission is to empower rural communities through education and access to sustainable farming methods and technologies. We are committed to food security and environmental stewardship. Real change starts with farmers. We've already launched food security projects and training programs across war-affected regions, especially in New Haifa and Wad Madani. Amid challenges, these success stories show what's possible when communities lead. Providing a single family with nutritious meals costs between $180 to $360 per month. Your support, no matter the size, can provide food, dignity, and hope to displaced families across Sudan. Sudan's future depends on collective action. Help us support farming families, community kitchens, and a national food movement that restores not just agriculture, but life itself. Visit spfafs.org or email us at sudanspfafs@gmail.com to contribute.
Tonight, I invite you to ask yourself, what will I carry forward from this evening? Sudan needs not just awareness, but as Ustaz Hanan mentioned, it needs collective action. Whether it's through advocacy, donations, or simply telling others what you've learned, your engagement matters. Once again, Thank you all very much for coming tonight. I also want to express sincere gratitude to the Monterey Peace and Justice Center for their continued partnership, support, and advocacy, and to Esther as well, and all of our speakers tonight, and especially to you, because showing up means you care. Thank you so much.